This is a video on how to set up a HikVision in VR for port forwarding so that you will get remote viewing on your internet browsers as well as your mobile phones. So I'm going to cover in this video dynamic DNS, port forwarding, um, mobile setup, and web browser setup for HikVision, which is actually applicable to most NVRs or DVRs. So the first thing is you've already got an NVR or DVR. Now mine is sitting at 10.0.0.200. Now this is the local address. So what you need to firstly understand is that there's a difference between public and private addresses. Now this video is I'm going to go into a lot of detail because I get a lot of questions about this, and so this is more like a lecture. So if you want a quick fix, probably don't watch this video. But if you want to understand all the aspects of DNS, DDNS, IP, and ports and setting up routers, then this is the video. Because after watching this video, my aim is that anybody who watches this video should be able to set up any NVR or DVR for the future. Okay, so let's get right in. Okay, the first thing you need is your IP address of your device. So I'm going to log in now. And I go to the configuration, and then I go to ports, so which will be under network settings, and I see ports. Okay, so on this NVR, I have an HTTP port, RST port, and HTTPS port, and SDK port. So which are important here? Now, your default port for SDK is actually 8000. Now, I've changed it to 810. Just for explanation purposes. The 80 represents the web port. That means, so if you want to go into your browser, like I've done here, 10.0.0.200, remember I'm on the local network, and I click go, then it brings me to the login page of my NVR. But if I change this to say 85, now what happens is I say save. Now look what happens when I go to the default my IP address for my NVR. Can you see it has no connection? And the reason is now I actually have to tell it to go to port 85. So this is your web browser port, kind of your internet port. Now if you're internal to the network or external to the network, this is going to be important. So if you change your port away from 80, you're going to have to always put the colon and the port number here. And the colon with the port number with the IP address is called a socket. So let's log in and let's put that back to 80. So you might be wondering, how come I had to write 85, but when it was 80, I never had to write it? And the reason is that 80 is the default port. Anything away from that, you'll have to state. So let's put that back to 80. Save. Now, just out of interest, let us try and log in at port 85. You'll see it won't work. So now we can go back to the original, and there we go. Now the next ports which you need to understand is the RSTP port and the SDK port. Now if you want to do remote viewing, these two ports are also important. Obviously the HTTP port is very important, as you won't be able to view your NVR or DVR through the web browser. So the next thing is we want to set rules, port forwarding rules. So you will need to be able to get into your router. Now the choice of router is important here, because if you are going to be doing port forwarding, you need to have a router that actually has the ability to port forward. And there we go, port forwarding. Then you'll see a list of ports that have been forwarded. Now the router that I'm using here for explanation purposes is the DSL by D-Link 2750U. And this is a very popular router, and one of the reasons why I like it is it comes with free DNS. Now, probably I should explain what the DNS is, the dynamic DNS, because everybody wants to set up their NVRs and they being told DNS and so on. Alright, so what is a DNS? Let's start with the DNS. Here I've got, let's put a web page here, www.cisco.com. Now, I typed in the word cisco.com into my web browser. Now, really, web browsers do not understand English. They only understand IP addresses. So what the Mozilla browser or Chrome or whichever you're using will do, it will look to a DNS server on the internet for the equivalent IP address of this name, cisco.com. So let's go to command prompt and say nslookup www.cisco.com. Now what I've done is I have manually looked up the IP address of cisco.com, and I can see it returns from a DNS server 23.221.70.133. So that is Cisco's IP address. So when you type in www.cisco.com, you are actually going to 23.221.70.133. Now, how come if you typed in 10, like my camera was 10.0.0.200, my camera server, how come if you type that in on your mobile phone or on a computer that was outside of your network, you wouldn't be able to log in? And the reason is that is a internal private address. So there's a difference between a private address and a public address. Private addresses are on the inside of your network, on the LAN. Note LAN, local area network. You see, it's local. If you want to log into a LAN computer on a network, you just need the local address. But in order for you to log in through the internet, you have to go through a router or a gateway, and that's actually what a router is. So we need to convert this address into a public address, and that's the point of the DDNS, is that the DDNS provides that pointing service. So in the case of the Cisco, they own a public address, so they don't need a DDNS. The DNS is fine. Now this might be confusing. All right, so the DNS means you've got a company and it has a name and the address is static, means it doesn't change daily. Now let's go back to my router. Can you see my IP address currently at 225 on the 15th of February is 169.175.60. Now let's reboot this router. Okay, remember the IP address. Let me just write that down. It's 169.1.75.60. So let's reboot the server, the router, and you will see that when the router comes back online, it was given a different IP address. So that means that my IP address keeps changing. Why? Well, if you want a static IP address, then you will have to purchase that, and it costs more. Look, nowadays it's not such a big deal to get a static IP address, but you still got to pay for it. So if you've got a hosting company or people who provide you with web access, they will most probably give you a dynamic address which changes often. Now, please don't confuse the internal address with the external address. The public address is that address I just showed you, the 169.1.75.60. Now you're probably wondering, hang on, the router has an internal address and an external address, and that is very important. A router has two IP addresses. The internal address is for all the computers on the network which you put into their gateway. You know, when you're on internet, you're on your computer and it says gateway, that is the router's internal IP address. But the router's external address or public address is the address given to us by the powers that be, which is your internet service provider. So the router is now back up and running. So let us log in and see if the IP address changed. Now there might be a delay. Let's have a look. Okay. So far my IP address is nothing. So a null IP address means my router is now sending packets to the company that provide me internet, sending me packets saying what IP address can I have. So they are going to allocate me an IP address right now. If you see packets on a network saying with this in the address bar, then you know that somebody's looking for an IP address. So my router is currently fishing for an IP address, waiting for it to be allocated by something called the DHCP, which has nothing to do with DNS. Right, still waiting. This is definitely not an advert for my internet service provider company, considering they're taking very long to allocate me an IP address. Right, there we go. 169.175.20.227. Now, what it was 169.175.60. So now change to 227. Now, what happens if you put those settings in your mobile phone or your web browser and you said, well, the IP address of this NVR is 169.175.227 or 169.175.60, and then it changes? Then you'll have to keep changing these settings constantly, maybe 5 times a day. So that is the point of the DDNS. They will provide you with a pointing service, and they notice your IP address keeps changing, and what they do is they keep allocating your linking your IP address to a name, a domain name. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you now. So to sum up, your router has 2 IP addresses, an internal IP address and an external IP address. The internal IP address is the gateway for the network. The external IP address is the IP address that the world can see. So let's see if the world can see my IP address. We can use a port scanning service. So let's go and say I'm on t1shopper.com, and let's go port scanner. And you see it picks up my IP address. Whoops, I just lost it. Okay, let's go again. Port scanner, and let's poke at port 80. Let's send ping request to port 80. Now my port 80 is open on my router. Can you see that 169.1.75.227 is available to the world to see, because it even noticed that a port 80 was open? So that means my router is online. Okay. Now, you may rent a dynamic DDNS service from many people. There's dyn.com, there's noip.com, and they'll rent it to you and you pay a monthly fee. Or you could get one from your NVR company. In this case, it is HikVision. So HikVision do provide the service. So don't look what I'm doing now. All right. So what we've got to do now is set up port forwarding rules. So you've got to go to advanced, and you've got to say port forwarding. Now I have a whole bunch of stuff here. So let me delete these ports. They come here automatically, and they're quite annoying. And let's delete them. Right. So keeping in mind that your NVR has certain ports which you have seen over here, 80, 554, 810. Now, depending on what platform of DDNS you are going to use will determine which of these ports you need to open. So if you're going to use HikVision's own port system, if you're going to use HikVision's own DDNS service, you need to open the 554 port. If you are going to use a third-party DDNS service, you're going to have to open the 554 and the SDK port, and then obviously the internet port. So let us go and open all 3 ports so that we're covered for any instance of DDNS. Now you're probably still wondering, what is the DDNS? I'm going to demonstrate the DDNS now. Let's just get the port forwarding rules set up. There's the router, and I have 3 ports actually already done here, and that's what it looks like when it's complete. So let me delete these and do them for you live so you can see how to set up a port forwarding rule. Right, so it's custom server. I'm going to call this HIK NVR web. And then it says schedule. Now you can schedule when the port is open. Maybe you want to set scheduling rules. In my case, I'm just going to have it open all the time. Server IP address 10.0.0.200. Who is the server? The server is the HikVision camera server, because the HikVision NVR is hosting all the images. So we want to grab or stream the images from that server. And that is why that is the server IP address. The port we want to use is 80. and the external port 80. And then we must enable TCP and UDP. What is TCP? TCP means connection orientated. Every time a packet gets sent on the network, it is confirmed to be sent on the network. Because UDP works on a best effort system. Packet gets sent, and if it got there, it got there. If it didn't, it didn't. There's no returning of signaling to tell the sender that the packet got there or it didn't. So it's kind of like the post. You send a letter, you don't really know if it got there or not. Whereas TCP is like a couriering service. You get sent there, the person signs for it, you'll get an email saying the packet was delivered. So we want TCP and UDP. I'm not going to go in more detail about why we use these different protocols. And then we say LAN loopback. What is the LAN loopback? It means that if you're on your LAN while you are attempting to access the server, it will allow it. This is usually when you are through Wi-Fi. So we say apply. Let's create another one. Let's call it HIK NVR and say app. And the reason why I'm saying app is because the app needs that port. TCP UDP LAN loopback. And the server, same IP address of the NVR. Okay, so there we go. We've got 2 port forwarding rules. So let's check if 554 is now open. Let's use our port scanner, 554, and check it out. It's responding. Out of interest, let's check if 810 is open. And it is responding, and I haven't opened up that port. That's a very important point. You can see here it's not in the list, but that port is open. And the reason for that is I haven't restarted my router. Now, this is a funny thing about routers. You'll do all the settings, and you'll think it works because you tested live. Then there'll be a power outage, or the router will reset, and guess what? It doesn't work. So that is why you've got to, after you are finished setting up your port forwarding and your remote view, you need to restart the router and determine if it still works. Let us add the just to prove that I've never opened up this port, say 8002, and it should come back with nothing. You see, it says isn't responding because I've never actually opened up 8002 on my router or NVR. And remember that there is the port that I'm talking about, 8010. Remember the default port would have been 8000. So when you go and you see the default settings on your HikVision, it would have said 8000. And if it's a Dahawa, it would have been probably 37777. And each NVR has got their own default ports. Okay, getting back to the port forwarding. This one, I'm still going to call HIK NVR, and I'm going to say 8010. And the port is 8010. 8010, and it is TCP and UDP, LAN loopback. Check your work. Yes, it's all right. Apply. Now I've opened all the ports. Now, the right way would be to restart the router. But I'm not going to do that now. But that is the right way. Then you can check it with the port scanning. I'm not going to do that because we already saw that port was open. Now, you've got to determine which DDNS service you're going to use. Are you going to use HikVision's DDNS service for a HikVision NVR? Or are you going to use your own? I have my own, but for this video, I'm going to show you how to use the HikVision DDNS service. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to register. So you go to www.hikonline.com. Then, what you need to do is sign up, register, and then they'll send you this email. Dear DDNS user, you are linking blah, blah, blah. So click the link to activate your account. That's all that means. If you don't click the link, it doesn't work. So you can log in here, and then I'll just put my password in. And I already have a device here. So what I'm going to do is, for explanation purposes, I'm going to delete it. Okay, so there is nothing there. That's when you've logged in, that's what you'll see. So let's add a device. Now, look what it's asking for. Serial number, device domain, and HTTP port. Now, that should look familiar. HTTP port. So let us put the HTTP port in the HTTP port. Obvious, isn't it? Now it's asking for the serial number and device domain. Right, so let's go to our HikVision unit and look at what the units details are, device information. Now there's the serial number. Now you can also go look on the device. Now I've written down the serial number because it doesn't allow me to copy and paste it. So I'm going to go put it in the DDNS, and during the time that I'm making this video, anybody in the internet would be able to log in to this NVR if you know if you can copy exactly what I'm doing. But obviously after this video, I'm going to change all these settings. In fact, I don't use the HikVision DDNS, so this is just for explanation purposes. Now it says device domain. Now what would that be? That is the name that you're going to give your device so that on the internet you can look for it. Like remember we said www.cisco.com. That is the domain name. So HikVision is offering you to have your own domain at hikvision.com or hikonline.com. So I've called my R1, let's call it Feb 15-2016. Now you say save. And it takes some time. Now you could call this anything. However, there are some naming conventions. Like I tried to put a number, letter, it didn't work. So it accepted Feb 15-2016. Now you've got to enable it, and you see the DDNS type I've chosen. There was a list here, no IP. Remember, no IP is another DDNS service that you can purchase or rent. Then there's Peanut, Hull, and Dynamic DNS. Remember the one that I just showed you, which is that one, where you can rent it. So it is built into the HikVision NVR. Now you are going to use the HikVision DDNS, or I'm assuming you're going to. So you saved it. Now do you see this domain? You see that is the name, which means if you are on the internet and you're looking for Feb 15-216 at HikOnline, they will point you to your NVR. And that is the purpose of the DDNS. It'll make more sense when you see it. Let us go to the domain name. What did we call it? Feb 15-2116. Now notice the order. You first do it on the NVR. Then you come to the DDNS and you do it here on their web service. Now can you see it says the device name? It gives you the ports. And let's look at the status. It says IP address. Now look at that. It's got my IP address, which means that DDNS service by HikVision went and visited my router, and my router has advertised its public IP address to the world, and there it is. Now if you want to go and log in to your HikVision NVR, now all you have to do is follow this link. It takes flippin' long though. There we go. Now you're probably thinking, that didn't take so long. Hang on. Don't be fooled. Now, I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube that show this, but they've left out an important step. I'm still on the network. Can you see? I'm on a LAN. I'm not actually going through the internet. This is the LAN loopback. Remember, I told you about the LAN loopback. So can you see? It is 169.1.75227. Let us do this through the internet. That is the true test. So what I've got to do is I've got to unplug my Ethernet cable and then go through my cellular company. So let's put my mobile on. So my SIM card in my laptop is now on. And what I want to do is disable my Ethernet. Let us disable it. Boom, disabled. Alright, so that's proof to you that I'm now on the internet. Waiting for the signal. The cellular radio is obviously getting its IP address. It'll come on now. Internet access. Right, now we go back to hikonline.com and we click on this link and we see if it takes us to our NVR now through the internet. Which means I'm now through a 3G SIM card going through that network all the way through the internet back to my telecoms company of my router, which is the ADSL, it's a different company, through my router and to my NVR. The signal is up. Let us go. Now it's going to take long. There we go. Okay, so that wasn't too bad actually. And then if I log in, and I've made it simple for today, this is my site, my local site, and I am going through the internet now. So it does take long. And if I try and stream it, it's a disaster because 1080p and however, this is where you set the substream values for your device. You can see how long it's taking. Already, it hasn't loaded the whole page. The logon page was easy, but now to load up and get all the channels and that's a little bit more difficult. More data. It's coming. All right, there it is. Okay. So you've seen it. I've proven it to you. That now works. You can also now, at this point, test it on your mobile phone through the web browser. Remember, the web is port 80. So if I go through the web browser, I can, which is on my phone, this is a Windows phone, it is Internet Explorer. Then when I click on it, it takes me to my logon page of my NVR. Right, now let's put my mobile data off. I don't want to get bankrupt here. Let's just re-enable the network port here. Change adapter settings, enable. That's proof. That was disabled. Now it's enabled. Right. Okay, I don't need this anymore. So if you want to know your actual own domain, it is www.hikonline.com/feb15-216. Where's the feb15-216? That is the name that we chose. Well, actually, I chose it. So if you chose there, I'm the cleverest person in the world, then your domain name will be I'm the cleverest person in the world. Got it. Right. Now, this is also a good time to explain another feature which is called dynamic DNS on your router. Now, it is also important to set up the DDNS settings on your router. You will see this option here, which is dynamic DNS. Now, you will need to add your own. Now, you can see there, I've done it. feb15-216.hikonline.com or www.hikonline.com/feb15-216. You put your username and your password. And you've got to set that up as well. That's important. Okay, moving on. Okay, so to recap, you now have remote viewing through web browsers. That's great, whether you're on the LAN or on the WAN, the wide area network, meaning you're not on site, you're actually doing the remote viewing. But now the next aspect is, how do you set it up on your phone? Right, for that part of the video, I'm going to use my action camera and show you on my phone. So I'm going to stop this video now.
Right, now I'm demonstrating the setup of the mobile app with a Windows phone, but it is irrelevant which phone you use, whether you use Android or Apple. The Android app is actually even more extensive than the Windows one. Right, going to HikVision in the marketplace for apps, or in your Play Store, whichever platform you're on. Right, now I've already installed it, so I can say view installation. There it is. Now, the first thing you'll need to do is set up the devices. Now you can see I've already set it up, so I'll just walk you through what you would need to do. Can you see that it says register mode, and it gives you an option: IP domain, IP server, or HIDNS. HIDNS is the HikVision inbuilt DNS. Then there's IP domain, which means you're going to fill this out manually. So let's go the HIDNS. Now the server address, remember we did it, was www.hik-online.com. And who are you at hikonline.com? You are Feb15-2016. Where did we get that from? You made that when you set it up on the NVR. Remember, in the beginning of the video, we chose that. That is something we choose. So you could have chosen world's funniest person, and it would be world's funniest person, as long as you set it up on your NVR and then register it on HikVision's website. Username, I've just put it very simple. This is the username and password of the NVR. You say save. Now, if it accepts it, it will be Whoops, I've got something to do there. It did accept it. If it accepts it, it shows it in bold, whereas if it's grayed out, it did not accept it. So now all you need to do is say live view, but then you must tell the system which one we are using. We are using HikDNS, and I've put all the channels on, and we should see all the views now. There we go. And this is live. Now, might be better to turn this sideways so we can actually, okay, it didn't make a difference. Right. So you've seen it there. There are some other features here. You can also remote play. You can search you can actually play back by querying the NVR from different channels and actually looking at different dates. So this is like a mini controller here. Now, just for explanation purposes, if you did want to set up a NVR, set up a remote viewing from your phone a different way, maybe you had noip.com. So maybe you had noip.com, then you'll put the address of that DDNS, and then now this is where the other ports come in handy. Remember I told you that we changed the port to 810. Now that's where that port is important. And the username and password is still the username and password of your NVR, but that port 8010, if you do not have that port active, you cannot view the your NVR using a different DDNS other than the HIK online. So if you're going to use your own third-party thing, then you're going to have to fill this in, and that's where the 8010 comes in. And then if you want to do it internally, well, internally means you're going to be just checking on your own local network. Then you just put it in 10.0.0.200, your username and password, you save it, and then what you'll have to do is you'll have to put your Wi-Fi on now, because without the Wi-Fi, it won't work. Now, that was set to 8,000, but I need to set it to 810. So now we'll register it. Sorry, again, I'm very busy today for some reason. Now look, it is going to query my NVR, and I can now view cameras locally. I'll just tell it I only want the local address, and it should be a lot faster now because now I'm on the Wi-Fi. Let me just activate all the cameras. There we go. Sometimes that actually makes it even better, believe it or not. And there we go. Substream. Now it plays according to the substream settings that I've set on the NVR. So that is how you do the settings for the local viewing. Now if I switch my Wi-Fi off, it cannot connect anymore because those were local values. Remember that this is a local address, 10.0.0.200. If I want to be able to see it through the internet, I have to use the dynamic DNS service, which converts this Feb 15-2016 into the IP address that my router is advertising, and which changes daily, by the way, as I have said. Now, if you've pressed the LAN loopback option, which we did, I can put the Wi-Fi back on and still choose the internet or WAN option, and it will still work because of the LAN loopback. And that's what the LAN loopback is allowing me to do. And there we go. So that brings me to the end of explaining how to set up remote viewing and on the web as well as on the phone for NVRs and DVRs. I will do one for the Dower model of NVRs, and I hope this video has been informative, and I hope this really answers a lot of the questions